a commercial imperative for it as ever. This enormous amount of pressure coming through on the chief exec and the finance or the board to change the way they've operated. And yet at the same time, nobody's relieving them of the shareholder pressure that they've got to deliver value for shareholders. That in turn cascades down the pipeline, if you like, towards pressure on people who are the operators. And the question gets asked of them, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about net zero and our ambitions? And I think that's the point, Ralph, you made, is that it's an enormous concept, and also something that we're talking about over the next 30 years to get to net zero. What can people do tomorrow and the day after and the day after? And I think that this is where our belief is that issues around circular economy can come in, because they're measurable. It's about waste, it's about reuse, and about operating in a different way. So that's where upskilling around circular economy, I think, can be hugely beneficial.
I think you're absolutely right, because if you just think about my sort of situation. So I do sit on the executive or the board, if you like, of a PLC. I'm not an expert actually in environmental stuff. I mean, as I mentioned, the companies I work for up and till now, they've had different CSR sort of strategies. Sky, whilst it was very, very hot on rainforest rescue and then ocean rescue, that actually those initiatives were housed in and amongst other CSR initiatives which were not environmentally focused. They might have been focused on social mobility and youth employment and things like that. So I'm a lay person, if you like, really on this. I'm not an expert on sustainability, but I do sit on an executive team in a PLC. And I know that, if I want to fixate on something as to what we're being asked for by investors, actually, and I should point out large customers, because it's getting, more and more of our customers who are people like Unilever or Procter & Gamble, other big Fortune 500 sort of companies. We're being asked to present our ESG credentials as a matter of us bidding and tendering for work with them. So I know it's important, and I know that if I could prove to them that we were carbon neutral, that is a bit of a sucker punch in terms of us presenting in one line, if it could be validated, something really powerful that would make them convinced that we were really serious about it. But I'm like, okay, I get all of those things. It's important. Carbon neutrality is the end game. But how the hell do I get there? And when, as I've become, more familiar with the circular economy, partly as, being asked to talk on this panel, I've done my research on that, and I'm not going to pretend that I've spent hours on it. And all of a sudden, just in about half an hour of finding, a really sort of neat model of how it sort of works, I was a lot wiser as to, right, I haven't solved everything for essential, but this framework has got rather more detail in it than just become carbon neutral. And I can work with this. And, if, funny enough, we have just recruited our first ESG leader. There's someone actually leading all of our CSR efforts, but ESG is actually the most prioritized part of that, simply because there is most investor pressure for that and more customer pressure for that than any other component of corporate responsibility. As the new head of CSR uses or gets into the ESG agenda for us, I think that they're going to be using the circular economy as a model to just sort of talk to us as a board or executive team as how we could make this practically work in our business. So I think it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, well, obviously the common sense factor of what we need to do to change the whole climate crisis and waste and reuse is an obvious tool to be looking at from that point of view, but it actually can impact on the bottom line. Although, excuse me, one of the things that came out in the conversations this morning was circular is not a quick fix.
Oh no, and my point would be, it makes it a lot simpler for me, excuse me, that's my doorbell now. It makes it a lot simpler for me to understand it, but it doesn't make it easy, right? There's a lot of things that are simple in the world. It doesn't mean they're easy. That's fully understood. But it helps us engage in the first instance, because it simplifies and helps us get well, I suppose a simpler understanding of a really massimistically, right? So if I believe there's parallels between HR and the ESG profession, HR a long time ago, ESG now, which I think is going to get a really accelerated opportunity. The question is, do you think there'll be more strategically minded people be drawn to the ESG profession as they see opportunities emerge from blah, blah, blah? Possibly, but actually in HR, the people who already worked there became more strategically minded. Because of some of the frameworks, it wasn't that people in HR or personnel weren't capable of being strategically minded. It was just that they perhaps didn't have the benefit of frameworks that would help them present the issues around people in the same way as the issues around ESG concerns, present them well to a board. And I think, people are sort of seeing that. And to give people hope in the profession, I'm not sure how well paid it is at the moment. But HR wasn't very well paid as a profession. When I started, I remember I started my salary, I started a graduate scheme with the railways, and my salary as an HR person was rather lower than every other graduate trainee because the market rate was lower. The pay for HR people now is absolutely no different to finance, legal, or accountancy people. I mean, it's easily sort of caught up, and actually for decent HR people, you can make a lot of money. I think that will become true of ESG, but I don't think it relies upon a load of new people coming into the profession. I think these frameworks allow those already in the profession to engage with them and lift their own strategic importance. And I think, that's what the EBN is sort of on a mission to do. Be People, the company I'm representing today and that I have an interest in, is looking to potentially, help people build their careers. I mean, Be People does recruitment amongst other things, and we're looking to build a specialism in the ESG sort of zone, because we think it's going to be a profession. We typically recruit in HR, marketing, and sales, and we think that HR and marketing in particular have been professions that have benefited from, big ideas and then practical frameworks. And we think the same is going to happen to ESG. So we think there are going to be great people there. It's going to be a growing market that we hope to sort of contribute and help people with their careers in.
Okay. I said we might be on for about 40 minutes, but we've gone on a little longer than that. I think the final point I would make actually is it was a question that Mark asked as well about